Should you as a writer buy apps that help you become a better writer? Do they hurt you? Are they beneficial? What are the pros and cons of buying apps that help you with your writing? We're going to be addressing those questions and more, and we're starting right now. Chances are, as a writer just starting out, you're going to be inundated with ads on the internet with the programs in these apps that you can pay and download that will help you become a better writer. They say that they have all of the tips that can help you become a better writer and get published faster. The question is this true? Will these apps that you can download make you a better writer? Can they get you published faster than if you didn't use them? Well, there is no doubt that these apps do mean well. These programs that you can buy that helps you with your writing, yes, they can help you. The question is, do you actually need them to a point where if you don't have them, you cannot get published? The most important thing that we have to remember is that people have been writing books for hundreds of years. And these apps and these applications that you can have on your computer to help you with writing, they're just new. They've only been around for a few years. You look at someone like Stephen King. Did he need apps teaching him how to become a successful writer? Did Dan Brown? Did Ray Bradbury need apps on his, if he had a computer way back then, would he have needed programs to teach him how to become a better writer, help him with his novel writing? Well, we've had thousands of successful writers over hundreds of years who have never used any of these apps. And yet there are a lot of young people out there now who feel as though they have to spend hundreds of dollars buying an app to make them a better writer. They fear that without these apps that they're not going to succeed, that they cannot get published. And it's too bad that there is a lot of writers out there who think and feel this way, that they feel as though they have to spend money they don't have. Because let's face it, when you become famous, you make money. But the majority of writers, when starting out, they don't have millions of dollars lying around. You need your money to pay rent and groceries. But a lot of young writers feel as though they have to spend that money to buy an app to help them become a writer, believing that if they don't have these apps, that they cannot succeed. And this is a negative mindset to have, because you look back at the thousands of writers in the past who have written novels and they have successfully been published. Stephen King never had any apps, but he was still able to write from the mind. William Shakespeare, hundreds of years ago, never had any apps or computers to help him write, and yet we still read his works today. You look back at some of the greatest writers. They didn't have any programs teaching them how to write. They wrote from the heart. They allowed themselves to see the story playing out in their minds, like some virtual reality thing in which they could see the characters interacting, talking, and they could write it down. They wrote a successful novel from the heart. And the fact is, even you as an amateur, without these apps, can be just as successful as Stephen King. The problem is a lot of these advertisements online make you believe that you cannot be a successful writer without these apps that you need on your phone and your laptop that will help you with your writing. And unfortunately, there are a lot of amateur writers out there who cannot afford these apps, and they don't even bother trying to write. They have ideas for a novel, but because they can't afford the apps, they don't even bother trying to start writing. How many great novels have we missed out on within the last few years from amateur writers who didn't even bother trying because they couldn't afford the app? This is a negative mindset to have. It's even same thing happens in music. There are a tremendous number of programs that you can download and pay for that will help you become a great songwriter, to a point where a lot of young people today feel as though they need those downloaded programs to teach them how to write a song. The fact is, when you look back at the history of music, from Led Zeppelin to Billie Holiday to Freddie Mercury, none of them, they didn't need any apps teaching them how to write a song, how to you compose a song with chords. They just did this from the heart, just like novel writing. But there are so many programs online that will tell you that you need to download this app, because if you don't, you're not going to succeed. But we have to ask ourselves, if these programs did exist decades ago, would people like Ray Bradbury and Stephen King have downloaded them? If you were to ask Stephen King today, would you recommend these apps, or do you just recommend trusting yourself, trusting your heart? Can you imagine if William Shakespeare did not want to write any plays because he didn't have these apps? Imagine if the world missed out on his work. Now, what I don't want to see is you having an idea in which you can't afford the app, so you don't bother. Every writer has to trust their own heart. You have to believe in yourself, and knowing that a great novel comes from the heart and not from an app that can help you with these tips that you have to pay for. Because in the end, it's the person who sells the app who cashes in. But will these apps truly make you a published author? There are a lot of people who have downloaded these apps and have them on their computer, and they're not being published. And yet there are other authors who have never downloaded an app, and they are getting published. So we have to ask ourselves, are these things really necessary? Of course, they do benefit you. There are things about these apps that can help you with your writing. But it's the psychological belief that you need to have one in order to be published. That if you don't have it, you're not going to get published, so why bother writing? This negative mindset is what we need to correct in young authors' minds, letting them know that they can believe in themselves. Just like how Stephen King did not rely on any apps, but yet he wrote from the heart, and look how successful he was. Imagine if Stephen King, back when he was young, could not afford any apps. And based on his life story, he probably could not have. He couldn't even afford a telephone in his house. If he wanted to make a phone call, he had to leave his trailer, go down the street, and use the payphone, because he couldn't afford even to have a telephone in his own place. And he did a lot of walking back then because he couldn't afford the gasoline for his car. Chances are he wouldn't have bought those apps. Now, can you imagine if Stephen King had given up on writing and he didn't even bother because he couldn't afford those apps? Look at all the books he has written that we would not have today if he had given up. But because those apps didn't exist, he had to rely on himself. And because he did, he ended up writing amazing books, just like you can. Because the last thing you want to do is pass up on buying an app because you can't afford it. When in reality, you just have to believe in yourself and know that, yes, you can write a successful book, because for hundreds of years, thousands of writers have written successful books without any computer apps. So why all of a sudden do you believe today that you cannot write if you don't have these apps, when for thousands of writers in the past have? Charles Dickens didn't need any apps on any laptops, and look how great his work is, to a point where we still read it today. And if they can write without having apps, why not you? An app will tell you that you can get published right away, but the fact of the matter is, all great writers have one thing in common. They were rejected. They had to go through the pain of rejection in order to become better. Even a lot of writers had to go to school. Stephen King went to school to learn how to write. He was even an English teacher. Vincent van Gogh had to go to school to learn how to paint. And Michael Jordan, the basketball player, he had a coach with him even when he was in the NBA. He didn't just learn how to play and then stop learning. He had a coach with him at all times. And Michael Jordan was cut from his high school basketball team. Stephen King got rejection letters from a lot of books that he wrote before Carrie. Van Gogh never sold any of his art. A lot of critics said that Van Gogh's artwork wasn't good. Even the best people have to face rejection. And this is why you have to understand that you're going to face rejection along the way. And a lot of times people buy these apps because they don't want to face rejection. They want to write the perfect novel right away. But the fact is, if you believe in yourself and write a great novel, be ready for rejection because it can happen. But you keep working to get better each day. Just like how Stephen King had to write every day to get better, even though he was rejected. He kept at it, didn't give up, didn't have to rely on apps, and through hard work, he became successful, just like how you can be as well. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to check out my website, where I have a tremendous number of blogs that will help you become the greatest writer you can be. I'm going to leave a link in the description down below for my website, where you can check it out right now and learn how to become the greatest writer you can be. If you enjoyed watching this video, be sure to watch my next video on the risky side of self-publishing your own novel. Can it help you? What are the benefits? What are the negative side? You know what? I'm going to leave a link for that video right here, and you can click on it right now and start watching.